Hello everybody, it's Mr. Cooper here and I'm just going to talk to you about assessment at Wellington RKL today. Assessment at WEK is all about assessing the whole child. It's not just about assessing their academics, it's about assessing everything that they find difficult and assessing everything and celebrating everything that they've achieved so far in school. And so I want to talk to you and kind of get you to understand the process that teachers go through and how that links to what information is shared with you. So this is going to be outcomes of the presentation. First of all, we're going to answer what assessment happens in the classroom and what do we want to see the children doing in the classroom. Then we're going to look at how does the teacher record the assessments, how are teachers assessments shared with you and with KHDA and various other bodies within school. We're going to talk about what are benchmark and key assessments. Benchmark and key assessments are words that you'll hear quite often at school. And finally, what external assessments do we use at Wellington RKL? So, when we're in the classroom and we are being teachers, teachers are listening and doing lots and lots of different things to assess the children. And what's really important that each child can be assessed in lots of different ways depending on how they show their learning. So, for example, children and teachers will be in the classroom and teachers will just look at how the children interact with one another. They'll look at what books, what's within their books and the work that they've done on a day-to-day basis in their books. They'll simply just watch the children on what they're doing, what they're saying, and observe the child to see what they can and can't do. They'll also question the children, ask them lots of different questions at different depths of understanding to get a real good understanding of what the child is thinking, what the child understands and what they need to kind of work on next. And they will just generally communicate and talk with that child in order to gain a really good understanding of what the child can and can't do. And so the teacher will do lots of different things, including these 5 things, to assess the children. So it's really, really important to understand that children are assessed in lots of different ways and that assessment isn't about tests, it's about what the children do and show on a day-to-day basis. So once the teacher has made their kind of assessments in the classroom, to kind of formalise that and to make sure that all teachers are on the same kind of wavelength and all assessments are at a similar level, we grade the children using these 4 key pieces of vocabulary that you should already be familiar with through the reports that have been shared with you. So we'll say entering, developing, securing or mastering. And the child is assessed against each skill in the curriculum using this type of language. So if a child is entering a skill, they may make lots of errors, they may need lots of support, they may know what that skill is but not necessarily be able to show how to do it or use it consistently. When the child is developing, the child is starting to make less errors, but they still make occasional errors. They'll be able to talk about it a bit more, maybe describe what that skill is. They may frequently show that they can use that skill, but they may still need some support. However, when a child is secure, that child can use that knowledge and use it consistently with rare errors. They may still make a few mistakes, but what's really important is the child is much more confident, and the key thing is that they're becoming independent. They can do it on their own. And of course, some children actually go past that and move to mastering, so they actually master that skill, so they become much more of a natural. They make very few errors in regards to that skill, and they can start to become quite creative. So we might think about that as in terms of when we're learning to drive. If to start off with, when we're learning to drive, we need lots of support. We're developing, we still need some support, but actually when we pass our tests and we're secure in our driving, we're quite independent. But now if we've been driving for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, 20 years, we're actually become much more of a natural. So we do things without even thinking about it. And that's when we start to think about mastering a skill, mastering that driving skill, being able to drive in lots of different ways, use it, be quite creative and actually become a natural. And so this is a way of teachers formalising those assessments that they make on a day-to-day basis so that we can describe the level of understanding a child has in terms of a particular skill within the national curriculum. Okay, so this then links to the question matrix that we've shared with you previously. The question matrix is a way of understanding how difficult a question is for a child to answer. A simple question such as what is and what does links to a low level of understanding. So a child that is entering or developing a skill might know what something is, but they might not be able to use and apply that in a different context. Whether a child that can do that might be able to answer questions such as how might, how will. An example like that would be, what is 2 plus 2? So that's a simple answer. They might know what the answer is, but they don't really know what that means. What does it look like? So then a question saying, how might we show 2 plus 2? The child might then get out objects and a variety of things to demonstrate and explain what 2 plus 2 actually means. So the question matrix links very closely to that assessment, and that's why teachers ask a lot of questions within the classroom to gain the understanding of a child's depth of knowledge over one particular skill. And if I was to pull that out again, if you're thinking about a child that is understanding the knowledge of questioning, or what a question is, a low-level understanding is the child might be able to answer what is a question. They may then move to when do we use questions and how do we use questions in our writing. So the children might actually be able to use questions, but actually when you think about it deeper, the child needs to understand the impact of questions and which questions can be more powerful than another. So then the questions get even more difficult with what is the impact of asking a question, how powerful can questions be, and finally a really complex question is when is it most appropriate to use a question. So they're actually starting to evaluate their own use of questions in their writing. Okay, so how does the teacher record assessment? So when the teacher has formalised and graded these children on various skills, that then is entered into our assessment system, which we use WEK. And so imagine here down the side there are lots of children's names, and then from across each objective, so this is one objective here and another objective here, each child is assessed against each objective on the level of understanding. So green means that they're secure, so this child is secure in the first objective, but they're developing in this objective. You can actually see the date that was entered. When the teacher reassesses them against that objective, they'll then be inputted again. So it might be at the end of term 2 or term 3, this child is reassessed, and it may be that the orange then turns to green, so the child is now secure in that objective. And that way, all the teachers and everybody in school can look at this information and identify what the child is really good at, what understanding they have, and what things they might need to develop next. So we can record all this information, this is saved, so that we can refer back to it at any time. And it's a really good resource for teachers to use to help them planning the lessons, to make sure that every single child is being challenged to their standard and to the things that they need to get better at next. And then obviously that links then to your report. So that basically takes all those objectives, colour codes them, and that's what's shared in your end of term report. So you should have received your term 1 reports and your term 2 reports, and that is a live snapshot of everything that a teacher can see on that WEK. So at the end of the year, what then happens is a child is summarised with an overall grade. So we take all those curriculum objectives and we turn them into percentages. What percentage of the curriculum have they secured? What percentage of the curriculum are they mastering at, or developing at, or entering at? It's quite clear to see here that if we look at individual curriculum objectives that are green, so I secure, if a child is 60% or more secure in the curriculum, then they get an overall grade as securing. Now, or if you want to pause this video now, I'm going to give you a challenge. I want you to see if you can give an overall grade to child A, B, C and D based upon this table of charts here. If you want to have a go, pause the video and have a look. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the answers now. So child A is securing in 50% of the curriculum. Now if we look here, 50% falls in line with the 30 to 59% here. So if a child is only securing 50% of the curriculum, overall they are developing as an overall grade. Child B is 85% secure. So actually that means here he's fallen into this grade here, and so he will actually finish here as secure plus, slightly above average. Child C is securing in 70% of the curriculum, which falls around here. So they are actually securing as an overall grade, and child D, now this is a trick question, they're mastering in 20%, which would be here. However, they're only secure in 30% of the curriculum. And therefore, if they're 30% secure and 20% mastering, they're still only at 50% secure or mastering, which means that they fall back into developing. So it's really important that the child is consistent across the curriculum and secures a minimum of 60% of the curriculum objectives in each subject. That way they will guarantee that they are at least securing by the end of the year as an overall grade. If you have any questions about this matrix and this column, then please do speak to your teacher. Okay, so it's really important to remember that securing is the UK end of year age related expectation, mastering is above average, or securing plus is above average, and developing is slightly below average. Over time, if a child does finish the years developing, over time, over the years that they are at our school, we will continue to push them so that by the end of year 6 they have actually caught up and will finish that year as securing. So for example, if a year 1 child finishes the year in developing, we hope that they don't continue to just develop all the way through the years, that actually over time they'll slowly catch up in terms of their percentages so that by the end of year 6 they will finish on track. And that's our aim for every single child. So over the years, the children will go from entering to developing to securing. Then in year 6, they'll go to entering, developing to securing, and so on into secondary school. It's really important to remember that even if you are mastering in 1 year level, you will go into entering on the next year because you have new curriculum expectations, new curriculum objectives. So a child that is mastering in year 5 will still have to go into entering, then developing, then securing, and back into mastering by the end of the year, because every single child is met with new expectations within that year group. Now, benchmarking and key assessments. Benchmarking and key assessments are basically our internal assessments that we use as a school to ensure that we are in line with UK expectations and also in line with other British curriculum schools. So we use things like Star Reader and Star Maths, which are online assessments that level a children against other children across the world that are also working on the British curriculum. Read Write Inc is a phonics program that is used in year 1 and foundation stage to build up phonics skills. This is a UK resource, and so if a child is working at a certain level in Read Write Inc in our school, they are comparable to children that are working in the UK at the same level. Rising Star Science is another assessment that ensures that children are working at a similar expectation as within the UK. And White Rose Maths is another company within the UK that sets out expectations that ensure that if a child meets those expectations in our school, they are in line with the same expectations within the UK. In terms of writing and maths moderation, this is a process where teachers compare pieces of work and assessments with children from within our school, from children across our GEMS network, and also from children across the world to ensure that if we are saying a child is securing their writing in year 3 at our school, that is the same across the whole of a GEMS network and in line with the UK expectations. So benchmark and key assessments are internal assessments that we do to ensure that our children are working at the same level as children are within other schools within the GEMS network and also within other schools that also teach the British curriculum. It's a way of ensuring that we are setting high expectations for our children that are comparable to what's happening in the UK. So here is an example of Star Reader test questions. They test on comprehension and vocab understanding. And here's an example of a Star Maths question, which again sets expectations and challenges the children on their understanding of various mathematical concepts. On top of all these assessments that we do as a school to make sure that we are in line and setting high expectations for our children and are comparable to things that are happening in the UK, Dubai as an authority also set expectations and want to compare us to the other schools within Dubai. And so we can complete various external assessments that are compulsory or are requested from the Dubai Authority, KHDA. And so, at the beginning of the year, from year 3 upwards in primary school, we complete CAT4 tests. These are tests that challenge children's cognitive ability, and it's a diagnostic test that allows teachers to understand exactly how that child likes to learn. So it's not necessarily on their ability, it's about how they like to learn. So it might be that the test tells us that a child likes to learn practically, or they like to learn through reading. And so teachers use this information to help them plan for all different abilities within the class and all different ways of learning. The PASS test is a test that is used in term 1, and it tests them on the child's attitude to learning and their own self-esteem. So it's really important that teachers have a good understanding of how confident a child is in their own ability and how they feel about school and their own learning. And again, teachers use this information to help support their planning. And indeed, this also feeds into our enrichment programme. So if a child has a bit of anxiety about their learning, then we can tackle that through our enrichment programme. And finally, we have our end of year progress tests. These progress tests are compulsory across from year 2 upwards, and the children are tested on everything that they've been taught in that curriculum year. If you want to prepare the children for these tests, then using your reports, the curriculum objectives is everything that will be on the test. We also have our phonics screening test, which is a UK assessment that happens in year 1, and that tests them on their phonics understanding. If a child does not pass that, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that the next year they will receive extra phonics support and then will be retested in year 2. Once all these assessments have taken place, it's really important for teachers that they take all this information and compare it together to get a really good detailed picture of your children. And so we use sheets called triangulation sheets that put all these test scores results together on one sheet so they can be compared, so we can paint a true picture of exactly what that child's ability is and what they need to do next to improve. And so all this information is used by teachers to set the standards for each and every child, and the lessons are then differentiated and set according to these abilities. If you do have any questions about anything on this video, then please do go and speak to your class teacher, and they'll be sure to either answer the question for you or pass you to somebody who can give you more information. I hope this video has been helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you very much.